Hey everybody, welcome
Hello.
to Heavy Metallurgy, episode number 25. Alan, 25 episodes. What do you
Yeah,
think of
no, I wouldn't have thought it was that many, but then we counted, and so it was.
that? I guess we're going to start keeping track of this stuff a little bit
Time
better.
flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, and it has been fun. Thank you everyone for joining us. Um, this week we have a special guest. Really doesn't need much of an introduction, but we're going to do so anyway.
We'll try.
He's been at this for many, many, many years. He's well known in the community, the metal community. He's a hell of a songwriter, hell of a father, hell of a husband, hell of a grandpa, and
Hell of a good guy.
hell of a good guy. And he's been flying the metal flag before many of you were even born, and that is to be commended, of course. And without further ado, we're going to bring to you the mighty King Fowley. King, welcome.
Hey, King.
Ta-da! Cheers.
Welcome
Hello,
aboard.
everybody. Hello.
Well, we do have a little bit of a delay we're going to be dealing with and a little bit of an echo, but that's just the way it is with the tech that he's got for this evening. Episode number 2 of this will be a little bit different, but we're going to roll with this. King, it's great to see you, man. It's been a long time since we've been face to face.
It has been a while, man. It's good to see you, Marty, and you too, Alan, brothers.
Yep.
All this crazy world we've been in, man. Now we're like locked in these little rooms and stuff, and we're shrunk down to the size of the screen.
Yep.
We're still big at heart with our heavy metal love.
Absolutely.
There's this, before we get started, this is a bit of a little bit of a reunion. We have to send props and cheers to the Lapland Metal Forum back in the day. Hail to Lap and all the friends.
Yep.
Been a long time. Yep.
Hello, Brian Lapashansky, whatever the hell. I never could say his name, still can't. But yeah, good old Lapland, man.
Yep.
That was God. I missed those days. That was fun.
Yep. AJK and all those folks. They had a good crew there for a long time.
Cheers.
It's really amazing how much technology is developed. I mean, I've known King since I started doing Worm Gear back in the day. I've interviewed him and hung out a few times briefly at some shows. And I think we connected maybe the most of the daily interaction on that message board.
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, that was just a daily place to go, man. It was a good place because everybody was, everybody could be themselves. We could all just, have our own opinions and things, but met a lot of people, got a lot of good friendships out of that, man. Many, I mean, handfuls to this day. I mean, just super cool people.
Oh, yeah.
But here we are, the era of Facebook and YouTube.
Here we are.
Us old bastards.
I have the face for video.
You do. Well, King, I guess we should just start off. I want to talk a bit about your bands. And, you've got a new album coming out on the 31st of this month. Thrash Times at Ridgemont High.
Halloween, when, heavy metal is always with the Halloween. It's not even the Halloween band.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, no, it's Thrash Times at Ridgemont High.
Yep.
36 years of this thing.
Can you believe it?
Jeez.
I do believe it. I mean, I think about it a lot. I was doing a big interview yesterday and I was talking about it. Yeah, it's a long while, man. I can remember back to just like being, sitting in my house, like even before deceased when, coming up with what thought were cool names like Evil Axe and fucking stupidest shit ever. But when you're like 13, it's the best name ever. But it's been a long time, but I love it, man. I have, the passion couldn't be any more. It's still my life. It's still everything I fucking love to do, besides my family and my friends. This is what I do, man. This is what I'm here for, to make music and, and enjoy myself making it. And hopefully if others do too, then that's a bonus. But yeah, we got a new record, the Thrash Times at Ridgemont High. It's going to be 12 songs, all cover songs. It's an idea I've had since 1996 when we were actually writing Fearless on the Machines. When we had so much time back then in the room together when we were writing it, because it was the first record we actually built a room inside my house, my mother's house, and inside of a room in the basement, and we could just jam and jam and jam. Before that, we were always looking for spots and renting places and going to storage units and going to people's houses hoping the police wouldn't shut the place down, and there's no way to write. So this was the first record we could do that, and we always had this extra time. So we would sit there and we'd start playing like everything from just what I needed from the Cars, just going, yeah, man, maybe we'll do a fucking radio fucking covers record, just jokingly, things like that. And I said, to myself, I said, man, we really got to do a thrash record, man. I said, some of these bands from the 80s that are getting lost in the shuffle, man. And as time was going on, and as you know, when Fearless was out, that was a lot of that grunge crap and all that stuff was happening in the world. And I kind of, thought to myself, I miss that stuff, man. Those bands have kind of gone on, and some of them, showed their way and kind of followed leader with the grunge stuff and kind of went like all depressed and, staring at their shoes kind of thing. Anyway, it's been in my mind since then. And with the COVID and everything, it was hard to get together with the guys. Nowadays I've got guys all over the place. Our drummer lives in Georgia. I'm in Pennsylvania. The two guitar players live in Frederick, Maryland and DC borderline, as well as the bass player. As you guys know, Mike Smith, and Mike has retired from playing live for over 15 years, and me and him still pretty much write the records, but he doesn't play live. And he's been overseas doing work. He's about to retire, and while I'm waiting to write the next Deceased record, there's this time on my hands and things to do things. So with the live band, we decided to get together last year and do Rotten to the Core 2, which was a punk rock covers follow up to the first one we did in early 2000s for a label called Malt Soda Records. And we did some Final Conflict, Lethal Aggression, stuff like that, The Accused, Cryptic Slaughter. And it was really fun. And the best thing was that since we couldn't go out and play shows and stuff, we could still advance the band in other ways, keeping the mind busy. So when that was done, and we thought COVID was going to let up late last year, early this year, and we could start playing again, we all know there was that second wave where it got weird again. And I said, we got to just get this Thrash Times thing. It's been on my mind for fucking, 25 years thinking about doing this thing. And we just got together and did it. I mean, we laid down songs we didn't want to do stuff that was basically going to be your Slayers, your Creators, the things that people mostly expect. First off, Deceased has covered those bands over the years. Wanted to dig a little deeper. Wanted to go to some of my favorite stuff like Whiplash. Power and Pain is my favorite thrash album ever. So I had to make sure I had Spit on Your Grave, which is my favorite thrash tune ever. Whiplash on there. The first Sacrifice record and demo. We did the theme song Sacrifice. We covered Blessed Death and weird stuff like Finland Stone, which I always love that song, Get Stone. And so Hell's Headbangers was totally into doing this idea. So, me being the kooky guy I am, I decided let's put our faces in some of the images from the movie. So I got to be Mike Damone. And Amos is our one guy in the band that likes to, smoke the left-handed cigarette. And so he got to be obviously Spicoli and et cetera down the line. And we did a nice layout. We put the high top Nikes instead of the Van shoes for the cover, working off the soundtrack motif of Fast Times. And it came together really nicely. We've been recording it all through winter, spring, and summer of this year. We laid down the drums first. We put the guitars, the vocals, and I went in and mixed at Oblivion Studios, where we've done albums like Fearless and Supernatural Addiction with our dear friend Mike Lozier. And it's all at Hell's Headbangers now. It's going to be out on CD Halloween of this year. And it's something I wanted, like I said, to get done with, get out there, and, just something I want to do gets done. It's an accomplishment. And then it's on to the next Deceased record, which is called Children of the Morgue. Mike will be coming back this month, and we will get back to writing this, and we will continue on with what Deceased does. It's death metal from the grave.
Well, I got to say, man, you really picked. I mean, we're all in the same age group, and I listened to the album today. I got a promo from Hell's Headbangers, and you really dug into an era and a style of thrash that's dear to my heart. I mean, I grew up on that stuff too. And the songs come off with so much passion and fire. I mean, you can tell that those songs are part of your DNA.
Well, thank you for that, because that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to come in and gurgle the vocals through it and stuff. I wanted to take each song as it is. As some people know, Blessed Death, Larry Portelli, he's a high screaming son of a bitch.
You killed it on that.
I made sure to put those 12-second screams correctly. I wanted to make sure they were correctly. So on my part of it, yes, as far as the band, man, they busted ass. They learned every solo correctly. All the drum parts are correct, everything. And the reason being is that it's one thing to, pay honor and tribute to something. It's another to just go in there and just do these songs and try to go on the name alone. We wanted to fucking do them right, man. And that's important to me. Deceased will never half-ass anything. We're not going to do a quote-unquote rent record. None of that shit, man. See, bands that I've loved and stuff have come back or reformed or put out this comeback record. It's just been a pile of shit and all this. I mean, obviously we're not there. We've never gone away, but just metal just needs to stay as strong and as genuine as it can be. And I give you my heart and soul, as well as the other guys on this thing, that we gave everything we had for that record.
No doubts. You mentioned some of your favorite tracks on it, King. I'm sure you had others in mind that there just wasn't room for. What were a couple that you wanted to include but just didn't make the cut?
You're right. There was so many bands, more so than just narrowing down songs. I mean, when you think thrash, you got to think the German Teutonic Attack, and of course we've covered Creator and Sodom and Tankard before. So some of my favorites growing up. Violent Force was thought about, maybe Dead City from them. Iron Angel was another one. I was going to go with Devil's Gate from their demo, which is a track they didn't do on either of the early albums of those times. Things like that. Aggression from Canada, Blood Feast. Thought about maybe doing we thought maybe doing Bloodlust from Blood Feast was another one. There was a lot. We could sit here. Morbid Invasion from Phantom Warrior from their demo. I mean, some of it would have got to the point where it was like, who the hell are these bands? And that's fine, because it was just done to do like that. Like, for a quick example, when we did the October 31 Metal Massacre 31, we didn't go and pick up people like, oh my God, you didn't cover Voivod on that. They were on there. That's your favorite band. I'm like, look, dude, we got to dig a little bit deeper on this. And you were busting out Demon Flight and Titanic and shit. It's just to give those bands another chance too, because I love those too. It's not to be KULT either. It's just a fucking, I loved it all then. I know you guys did too. We dug deeper. It wasn't just about, oh man, why didn't you cover Overkill or Metal Church or Fate's Warning, blah, blah, blah. So with the same thing with this thrash thing, Cyclone, what a record. Brutal Destruction, had to cover that, man. Artillery, Fear of Tomorrow, one of DC's favorite records of 85. I mean, we sat there, this punk kid named Punk Tim, he'd walk around with all these hardcore records, English Dogs, Agnostic Front, MDC, and then he pulls out this record on Neat Records, Artillery. And I know the demos and stuff, and I'm like, man, this is on Neat Records, Venom's label. So we put that on, and we fell in love with that, man. And so it's just stuff that's still dear to the heart. I still reach for the old records, man. That's just me, man. It's just what it is.
That makes perfect sense. And yeah, I thought the track listing is really, really good. And yeah, it reminded me a lot of the October 31st rundown, because you picked a lot of really cool bands that folks aren't going to know, but it may help some people discover those bands.
Yeah, and I don't want to become a tribute band, a tribute band. Between the two bands, like 70 fucking tracks. That's enough for a while. Let's get to some more of our own originals.
Fair enough.
Well, what blows me away is your vocals. They never cease to amaze me. You seem to fit any mood that Deceased is in, or October 31, but in this covers album, it's really cool. I think how you injected your own spirit but maintained the essence of who you're covering. Like the Blessed Death cover is fucking nuts. You nailed it. I mean, that song is probably one of the most insane thrash songs ever, one of the most insane thrash albums ever, and you just crushed it. I mean, it just amazes me how versatile you are as a vocalist.
I've never considered myself. I've considered myself a good front man, and I have personality and things like that. As far as this aggressive stuff, I think with Deceased coming, like Ghostly White or Surreal Overdose, the album before, I think I've gotten better as I've gotten older. Being off of fucking drinking and all that shit couldn't have helped me anymore. And I've tried to keep my shit right. And I'm very proud of the vocals on this record, because I wanted to give each one what it needed to be. I wasn't trying to go down gurgly road. There's nothing worse than just just shitting your way through it. And when I was in the Blessed Death vocal, for example, I had the tape in there and I was playing it for the engineer, and I said, okay, I want to get this right. I want to lock this in. I want to make sure I'm doing everything I want. I want to make it go as far as it's supposed to go, with that one scream there right before the lead break. And it was 12 seconds. That one part was literally a high hold scream, wasn't a, quirk it up. And I've heard stories. Rob Wacko Hunter from Raven was the producer on that. I've heard stories of Larry Portelli going in with the whips and chains and beating the fucking floor to death and doing all that crazy shit. So I did it. And I said, again, can I hear the playback? I just want to see if it's what I think it is. And then he played it back, the engineer. And I said, no, play me back. I said, don't play the tape. I want to hear me. He said, that was you. I said, well, fuck, that's all I need to know, man. And thinking it. So I was happy. My wife was like the whole time, are you going to be able to do that, crazy motherfuckers? I said, I hope so. And I put that off. It was next to last. It was one of the next to last things I did. But like the other stuff, like for example, Stone, it's a little bit more singing, or like Death Wish from England, it's a little bit more singy. And I wanted to keep it there. I wanted to keep the melodies in the song. I didn't want to erase those or change those or just make it more like quote unquote brutal. I thought it was intense enough as it was to leave it as is and just do my take on it from inside that as well as the other guys.
Good deal. Yeah, I was glad to see that Demon Preacher in there. That's cool. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was tough. It was going to be that or In the Name of God from the first record.
Good deal. Let's see. I think again, we don't want to spend all our time on Deceased catalog, but I know a lot of folks always, want to hear a little bit about, Fearless Undead Machines. That was a big point in Deceased's career where you got a lot more visibility and the band sort of really found its sound. It's had some good reissues with, I was reading the liner notes to this reissue version of it recently where you talked about it in a lot of detail. But how's the newer albums? Are you sticking to the formula that y'all have been using in recent years? Or are you branching out, trying a few different things? What can we expect out of the upcoming new material?
Well, the next album, Children of the Morgue, will definitely be more of what we do. We'll probably add some more weirdness to it, some more odd ideas. We try to, add a little bit more quirk each time, just a little bit more. We don't want to push, we'd like to keep it in. I don't set boundaries, but we're sure as hell not going to put a rap part or some horse shit like that in there, man. It's going to be us. What I've personally, as an arranger and, the lyrics and stuff, I want to make it darker, more eerie. And I'd like to get these songs, but I still want to keep the intensity and the speed up there. I think as what we do, that's one of the hardest things, to play a fast song, but still be able to get a dark, dreadful, eerie kind of vibe to it. A lot of stuff you need to slow down to get that kind of feel, but that's something we're definitely trying to do. As you mentioned with Fearless and stuff, that's when we started adding more of the heavy metal elements, more so than ever. That's definitely going to be a part of it. Like with the last record, Ghostly White, a lot of heavy metal on that record, a lot of just pure heavy metal stuff on there, but yet you still had some fast stuff on there too, Palpitations, Warning kind of stuff, which was like super fast for the record. And then I'm still a speed freak, man. I'm Surreal Overdose. You go an album back before the last one. I still like to play that real fast stuff. I haven't lost any of that as I got older. I've still got a lot of testosterone going through here and adrenaline and stuff. So it's going to be a little bit of everything, man. I definitely want to try to make every song as important and as equal as everything. We want to do the all killer, no filler, at least to us. If anybody else agrees, that's up to their ears. But that's the plan. That's the plan, to really go in and just give a really fucking dark, creepy ass album.
Cool. Sounds great. Yep. And yeah, you always, that's something that's become a good mark for Deceased, is very consistent. Yeah, there aren't dud songs on the album. There's not throwaway songs. It's always really solid start to finish.
Well, thank you.
Well, Ghostly White came out in 2018, and it, again, another solid album. And after so many years, I think that album in particular, I noticed a ton of great reviews, a lot of notoriety. It seemed like you're moving the goalposts with every album. And again, we talk about, you've stuck to your roots, but are you surprised that after all these years, people are still gravitating towards what you're doing? And maybe you're turning on some new listeners to investigate that back catalog. I mean, is that everybody likes to hear that they like that their album is liked, but I mean, it's, you guys seem to be, every album, it seems to be more and more people are signing on.
Well, I mean, it's cool that people still enjoy what we do. I mean, that's a plus. Like I said, we've got to, as a band, enjoy what we still do. It's got to be, I can't just put something out and, and fake it. I can't this and that. I want the songs to be as good as they can be. Being the arranger of everything, I take a lot of pride and time into that, as well as the other guys. Mike writing a lot of the riffs, Shane coming and doing a lot of stuff too. It's been really cool. It's been really, I don't know what the word is, but it's exciting. It's still very exciting. With Ghostly White, it was crazy. I mean, getting 18th best album of the year on Rolling Stone magazine. I could give a fuck about Rolling Stone magazine or any of that shit. So the rewards, or whatever you want to call it, the merits, whatever, it is what it is. I mean, I know we're still ourselves and we're still doing all this on our own terms. We've done nothing to change any of that. We still do what we do, and we will always stay ourselves. That's one thing. The bottom line has to be, it just has to be.
Absolutely. Would you want to touch base a little bit too with October 31st, another project you've been involved with? It has been a few years since the Covers album. Are you looking towards getting new stuff with October 31st going again in the near future? Or is that kind of just taking its time for now while you focus on Deceased for a bit?
Well, we played one show here about 3 months ago in Raleigh, which was our first show in quite some time. We're working in a new drummer. We've had the musical drummer chair for quite a few years here now. We're trying to keep it going. We have a title. We have one. It's called Ye Old Peril is our title. Hell's Headbangers, is asking all the time. Our guitar player Brian's had some health issues and stuff, so he's going through some stuff which has slowed us down. Obviously, COVID has slowed everything down too.
Yeah.
We plan to get together and write some new material. We want to do just another traditional heavy metal record. Try to write some catchy songs and do all that. I'm still wishing that I could just play drums for it and have somebody sing that can actually sing. When I'm trying to do Dave Meniketti melodies or a Rick Emmett type of voice, that ain't me, at all. But again, I'm a good entertainer live, and they're like, "Oh man, but you got to be out front, man, because you're a good front man and all that shit. So you got to give and take, And that's been that way for decades now. I mean, since my first time I ever sang for that band live was at Vakken 2000. I mean, we played, and that was when Dave Scarface was playing drums. That was his first time ever playing drums for us on stage, and that was the first time I ever sang out front for any band. And it was like 20,000 people.
No pressure.
So it's fun like that. But I mean, my heart is really in Deceased as far as that kind of thing. That's my voice. That's more me. I have that rough kind of, thing to me. But we'll write. We'll see how it goes. See if my voice can handle that kind of stuff. We have to kind of write around that too. I mean, again, I'd love to do some more stuff with a lot more melody type of stuff. Some warlordish, maybe early Fates Warning type of stuff as well. But it's just. It ain't gonna come out of here when it comes time for this, and it's gonna sound like, Grandpa Munster singing for Warlord.
Well, I mean, October 31 has been around since '96. It's amazing how this side project has kind of taken on a life of longevity as well. What did that band offer you that maybe you weren't finding in Deceased? Was it just a fun thing with buds, or was there something more?
It was crazy how it took off, in a quick circle of it all. Basically, Brian called me up, the guitar player. He had a band called Overlord. He wanted to do some shows with Deceased. We were talking on the subject, which we were 5 minutes ago here, where how the grunge was all in and nobody was talking about old heavy metal or old hard rock. We got on the subject of Uriah Heep, a Abominog record, which is my favorite record of all time by any band. Yeah. And he loved it so much. And we just hit it off. And he was actually older than me. So even then, and I was one of the older cats then. And he was just telling me how he would love to do something like that. And I didn't even know at the moment he was a guitar player. I said, well, yeah, I played drums. And he didn't know what I did either. He didn't know the band too much. He was just trying to get bands to play shows with for his band at the time, which was called Overlord, which was Dahmer's Diner. Give you an idea of what he was doing at the time, just playing guitar in some local death metal thing. So we decided to get together. We wrote some stuff together. We got friends of his came in. We wrote 3 new tunes in a weekend. Voyage to Infinity, The Fire Awaits You, and When Darkness Covers the Sun. We also covered Child of the Damned from Warlord. That's when I really thought I might have it in the pipes back then. We also covered Harder Than Steel, but we didn't do anything with it. We put a demo out of this stuff. It took off in the United States. I sent it out to about 10 people. Next thing I know, people are asking about it. It gets to Europe. Hellion Records enjoys it. A guy gets in touch named Stain Costin with a label called Rip Records. He wants to put out a record. He says, I ask that you call it The Fire Awaits You. I think that's a great song title. It'd be a great title for an album. I asked Brian if he wanted to do something. By then, Jim Hunter had come in, a dear friend who was just finishing up college at the time on bass. And we wrote this record and we put it out, and all of a sudden it was the album of the year in Hellion Records. It made the cover of the catalog, the biggest store, probably of heavy metal anywhere in the world. And I was just like, man, Deceased busting our ass doing all this, and all of a sudden this just falls in our lap. And then they wanted a new EP, which I put out on my label, Old Metal Records. Then it was picked up by RIP. Then Metal Blade wanted to sign us. And we still had an album to do with Rip Records, so we did Meet Thy Maker. So Metal Blade put out Meet Thy Maker with Visions of the End EP as a 2-on-1 CD. And even pressed the vinyl in a time when vinyl was, a no-no. Yeah. And then they brought us to Vakken. And during this time, we had one guy sing who couldn't sing, but was a fun front man, a guy named Chuck. And then I think Alan was at this one when we did stuff with a guy named Sean Pilata. We played at King's down there, and he was a hell of a singer, but it just wasn't his gig to be going out. In America, you'd be playing one show to a bunch of people loving it, and next week you're playing Allentown to 4 people. So, I don't mind that, but some people do, and some people can't afford. I can't afford it either, but we would just go out and do that. and it wasn't for him. So we had the Vakken thing on the table. So I said, well, fuck it, I'll just sing. We brought in the guy Dave, and we practiced and practiced and practiced. And I remember that Brian and the other guitar player at the time, Kevin Lewis, they lived over 500 miles away, and we had to go in 2 days. So we got together, me, Dave, and Jim. We were all local, and I just played all the riffs into the microphone with my mouth. I just did the whole guitar set. Gung, 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 gung. I played all the riffs so they could jam again. So we would be that much tighter. We went there. We had a great time. The Metal Blade thing, I actually tore up the contract soon after we got back, because there was a lot of, heard how much it took off, and it was so easy and laid back. You didn't have all this pressure. And then playing live, I just made it a fun event, and like, let's throw shit out, and let's make fucking signs that say, fucking Sharon Osbourne's a cunt, or fucking whatever, and let's make Dave Mustaine fucking pinatas and beat it to death, and stupid sayings that he said will come out of the head, just shit like that, or VHS giveaway and stuff. It was fun, but again, it was more like an Ozzy Osbourne kind of thing. I'm up there kind of like, quirking my way through the stuff. Some nights better than others, but always a fun show, and I guess that's the bottom line. But for me as a musician, when we do these albums now, I'm like, man, I'm monotone. I'm fucking flat here. It sounds like shit. And other people are like, no, it's good enough. And I'm like, it's just not good enough. So there's a give and take with that, because I fell in love with doing that style too. And it gave me a chance to do the clean voice. When I was a kid, 15, 14, I did all that stuff. I'd sing to Fistful of Metal records and Queen of the Reich and Man of War, and I could do that stuff. And but by the time that came around, I couldn't do it so much. But I enjoyed that stuff, and it's fun, and I love those guys. And Brian's health, man, worries me and stuff, because I love the guy and I want him to be okay on everything he does. So it's close to home as far as like friendship and all that. But as a band, it's been a super cool, and I'm looking forward to doing another record, hopefully.
Yeah, Brian's a monster on the guitar. I think one of the times I saw you in Kalamazoo, you were with Tony from Twisted Tower Dire on vocals.
He came, he sang a little bit later when I again said, let's get somebody that can sing in here. And he was totally into it and things. And then it just kind of, at the time, Jim had a lot of bands going on. He was doing While Heaven Wept. He was doing Twisted Tower Dire with those guys. So it was just harder to do what we did. And eventually, I think Tony got, doing his own thing. Rest in peace. We lost him, fucking unfortunately. But yeah, that was fun. And it was fun to just play drums for a change, man. Just be able to go back there and, lock in on the drummers I like and that kind of style too.
Well, King, we're fans to the end, and we're looking forward to what's coming next for you for sure. But the reason we're here tonight, King has chosen to discuss the Sabbath discography, which we're going to break into 2 episodes. We're going to start tonight with the Ozzy era, which I think most people are the most familiar with. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And for me,
all the Ozzy, everything. That was
for me. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm waiting on you. I'll let you do your thing.
No, it's writing down this discography tonight. I was looking at the dates. Some of this shit predates my birth. And it just amazes me how far ahead of their time Black Sabbath was. My musical journey started with Kiss, which is very, poppy. But going back on this, there's a dark, heavy element to Sabbath that can't be denied, and they're the godfathers of heavy metal.
So let's just work our way through the discography. We'll start with the first album, King. I'll hold them up. You tell us whatever you want to tell us about them, and Marty and I will throw in our 2 cents after.
Satan puts you on hold.
Whenever you need to grab a breath. But it starts real early in 1970, February, Friday the 13th, and this comes out and changes music history forever. What do you think of this one, King?
It sure does. I love that one. My Black Sabbath journey begins, just to get to where it gets me into it all. 1979, me and my buddy Dan Warden were going through his brother's tape collections. I was into Ted Nugent, Kiss, Aerosmith, fucking Foghat, the heavy bands of the moment, Heart, etc. And we went digging through his tapes, and we're like, what's this? Crosby, Stills, and Nash, put it on. Oh, that's hippie shit, man. What's this? America, put that on. It's hippie shit. What's this? Black Sabbath, put it on. It's hippie shit. we were playing Planet Caravan from Paranoid. Okay. And I was like, this is hippie shit. Threw it there, kept going. 1980 comes, 1981 comes. We're going to go see AC/DC for those about to rock tour. My friend's dad goes to get tickets. Seats are so fucking bad. He doesn't buy them. He buys Black Sabbath. I'm like, Black Sabbath? What the fuck? I got to sit through this hippie shit. This is not AC fucking DC. Okay. Around the same time, there's a song on the radio. I'm loving it. It's totally what I'm into. I'm like, who is this fucking band? Well, it turns out it's Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. That ain't the tune I heard at my buddy Dan's basement that time, right? And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, but that doesn't sound like the same guy singing either, right? So I go out. I'm in 7th grade. I go out. I'm stealing fucking circus magazines, Cream magazines. I'm reading about this singer, Ronnie James Dio, who's trying to, carry on in a fucking world where everybody loves Ozzy. And I'm like, okay, Ozzy must be this guy. And of course, now Crazy Train and all that stuff's on the radio, and Flying High Again's about to come flying out of the gates. So I'm learning what's going on. So I go to the show, December 3rd, 1981, Mob Rules. I'm blown away. They do the Heaven and Hell with the pinch of sign of the Southern Cross in there. I give my fucking soul to heaven. I didn't give my soul to rock and roll. I gave it to heavy metal that night.
Yep.
So we left that show with Mob Rules baseball jerseys, and from then on it was Sabs are the best. Fuck the rest. We were Black Sabbath freaks. So I went up to what was then Musicland, became Sam Goody, probably now known as FYE. But we went in there, and a lot of those records from the 70s were $3, $3.99. So I kind of didn't pick anything that off the top except for the cheapies. And the cheapies at that time was that first Black Sabbath was in there. I bought that. I bought Live at Last, Black Sabbath, which was a bootleg live record. And I bought Masters of Reality used. I think I got that for $0.25 at a used shop. And I was just listening to these records, and I was like, now I got it. Now I got it. When I got around to Paranoid, of course, I had heard by then Iron Man and War Pigs and all that stuff. Sure. I realized this is their fucking psychedelic number on the record. They don't have a lot of stuff like this. Mm-hmm. When I sat down to that Black Sabbath, because I was mainly familiar with Dio's version of it live on the Mob Rules tour, I was just like, this is so fucking intense. That song is so crazy. And I just laid into the album. I realized how they'd come from a blues band and a jazzy type of thing. A lot of jams on there. A lot of those moments where let Naomi just go do his thing. And then even, Geezer with his basically NIB thing was cool too. Then I just happened to wonder upon the import with the fucking Open Up with it had Evil Woman, the Crow cover on there with the upside down cross. And I was like, man, they're so cool. And even though it was metal, but it was rock to me too, because it was so old for me. It was like 10 years. It was 70, right there. It was the late 60s, 70. I'm like, man, this is like, way old. I'm thinking to myself, it was just so fucking heavy to me. And, even with the harmonicas on there and all that, and Bill Ward, I wasn't a drummer at the time yet, but Bill Ward, he was just setting such a pace to these tunes, just blowing the record up. And, it's very raw and very primitive sounding, but it's all there, man. It's like, when you realize Tom Allen talked about how they did it so damn quick, and they always talk about how quick they did it. It's basically live in the studio, if you want to call it that. And it's just good. And here we are 50 years later plus. It stands the test of time, especially the title track. I mean, that's that along with probably DOA from fucking Blood Rock are two of the most dirging, evilest, dark tunes of the 70s, that are of some known. We're going to dig deeper as we go with some deeper Sabbath tunes that are even darker. But it blew me away, man. A $4 record from Musicland. It just blew me away, and I just could not stop playing it, and I still play it all the time.
Yep.
How about you, Alan?
It's one of my favorites from the Ozzy era, and it's funny because it's got the really heavy songs on it, like King mentioned with NIB and the title track. But it's got all these other styles on it too. It's got there's still a good dose of blues in it. It's got the harmonica parts. It's got sort of quiet, softer parts. All over the album with Sleeping Village and stuff. It's a really varied album, and I think that's one reason it holds up so well is that you can listen to it at different times and you'll get completely different things from the album. But there's always those linchpin, just heavy metal monsters on there that. Kind of like King's saying, it's writing the blueprint for what becomes an entire genre of music. some people debate it, but I think there's, it's a really good reason. A lot of people consider it the very first heavy metal record.
I definitely do. I do. And another thing I want to point out is it's fun to listen to that thing speaker to speaker. Sometimes just turn your speaker to the left and listen to the record, or listen to it on the right. You'll hear some oddities in the way they mixed it and everything with just the panning and stuff. That's cool too. And I don't want to forget the warning jam in there too, man. All
That's
that,
a great
that
song,
covers
yeah.
there too. That's cool. And that was on that Live at Last. A lot of that piece of that in the middle of Wicked World on there, they go into some of that jam. That's cool. And that shows where Tony Iommi's, flavor came from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Warning is one of the best, one of my personal favorites on it. It just, flows so well. It's so good. Yep. Marty, what's your take on the first album?
I mean, it's a classic. It's integral to all the music we love and listen to still. And it amazes me listening to it. It's a band that was very forward thinking, and there's classics on that album that they still played up to the end because they're amazing songs, but the blues element from when they were Earth is still very much a part of what they're doing. And even Ozzy's voice, he hadn't really settled on that in his throat singing style. There was moments of his singing, it was very down in his chest, very earthy sounding to me. It's a cool mix of songs, and you get the jam in there, and it's just it's amazing how much they developed over the first 3 albums, and that was a great launching pad for an amazing career.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's another thing. Ozzy Osbourne's vocals were definitely an oddity too, and he delivered that dramatic presentation of the song Black Sabbath. The vocal was part of that, not just the riff. He needed to present that in a way that, a harrowing way, and he did just that. And his voice, like, he's not a professional singer, but he's got character and personality in there, and that's what they needed, and it definitely works.
Yeah, his vocal really fits the mood of that album and that song in particular perfectly for it. Yeah. So, King, before we move on further in the discography, just out of curiosity, we kind of all agree this is probably the first heavy metal record. What other ones do you think could, contend for that title? What else came out around that time that deserves mention in that, first ring of heavy metal albums that come out around there?
I mean, just, around that time, a little bit, some before. I mean, like Blue Cheer, that Vincibus Eruptus, people all the time. I've just never got that record. It's heavy, but it just never did a lot for me. I don't know. It just kind of came and went. I know you could call it heavy for sure. Of course, anything of the Mountain stuff of then. And, Zeppelin had some really heavy shit early on. I mean, Communication Breakdown, things like that were very intense too. But just for that dark vibe, I don't really hear anything else like it, man. Bang had a good record too in America a little bit later, but I mean it's Sabbath. It's just Sabbath to me. I mean, I've heard people argue this for years and stuff. Some people are like, oh man, what about the Guess Who and all this? And I'm just like, huh? I just don't feel that way. That just seems like heavy metal. It's got that eerie horror tinge to it that heavy metal to me needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got that little sinister element to it that a lot of those other ones, which are good albums, but those other bands didn't have that.
Well, I mean, like they say the Kinks. Yeah, the Kinks had a fuzzy guitar sound. They had a torn up speaker they recorded through. I get it. It's heavy for what it is. And I guess that's an element of it. But to put all those elements together, that record you just showed is the record.
Yeah. The Blue Cheer album, it's loud, it's heavy, it's fuzzy sounding. But if you take that fuzziness away, it's pretty much a pretty straightforward blues rock album. It doesn't have any of that sinister element.
It's a heavier The Who to me.
Yeah.
They cover Summertime Blues.
Yeah, that's fair.
People in here mentioned Cream, Third Lord, Baltimore, and Deep Purple also. I mean, those are all
absolutely. Yeah. Cream's Clear Water, man. I mean, some of their tunes. I mean, I was listening to Born on the Bayou the other day. I was like, man, this is almost black metal of the time. It's got that evil tone, things like that. And Third Lord, Baltimore, and of course Deep Purple. They all had elements, but I just don't get that same eerie, man, that I get with Sabbath. That record, even the jazz breakdowns and stuff, something about it, it's monstrous. It's just monstrous.
Yeah, even the cover songs they're doing, they still they still has that little unsettling edge to even the cover tunes. It's not just
that's the word, unsettled. You got it, brother.
Yep, good deal. All right, well, it took them only a little more than 6 months before another album that I think a few people have heard of would come out. famous for the What the Hell cover, of course.
Welcome to the
War
70s.
Pigs cover that never was.
Yep. The last minute title changes sometimes fuck with your artwork a bit. But King, talk us through, lead us into Paranoid, King.
Well, Paranoid, like I said, Planet Caravan was my tune from that. Obviously, around that time in 81, 82, Sabbath on the radio, they had this thing they do a lot. It was called BS Weekend, where they play bands that had the abbreviations of BS, Black Sabbath, Bob Seger, Bruce Springsteen, that kind of stuff, Buffalo Springfield. And Sabbath would always get played on there. So, I mean, they would, back then, they would dig harder. Nowadays, you'll only hear Paranoid, at least where I live. You'll hear Paranoid once in a blue moon. They're like, all right, 2 minutes, 40 seconds, get them on, get them off, kind of thing. But back then, you could hear a Fairies Wear Boots on the radio. You could hear a War Pigs unedited full version of that at the time. And that record, man, is just Iron Man has never been one of my favorites. Even I know it's overplayed, and Paranoid has not been one of my favorites either. But War Pigs for lead off. I mean, between and Black Sabbath from the first as the lead off tracks, it's just so insanely heavy. You look at those guys in there, man. Just so look at Iommi. What a fucking monster. And Bill Ward just showing off again, man. Rat Salad. I mean, everything on there. Electric Funeral's got to be one of the most dirge things ever. You talk about dark, Freaked Out, and then Hand of Doom with the middle part. It was coming along quickly. That one wasn't in the $4 pile at the Music Land back when I was first buying them, because it was still the hit record. For the Ozzy Years, that would be the hit record, quote unquote. And so I didn't get that record right on the spot. I think I did pick it up later at the used place for a quarter, like I got Master Reality, and I fell in love with it. I love it. I love the sound on it. I think it's one of Geezer's best bass sounds, one of his best tones, and I just think it has such, again, a raw and ugly sound that just works so well. Not a big guy. Never was a big guy on Paranoid. I'm not going to lie to you. Iron Man is okay. I mean, it was cool when I was a kid hearing that I am Iron Man on the radio. It was cool, but if I'm going into tunes, I'm looking to my Electric Funerals. I'm looking into my Fairies Wear Boots. And I think my favorite cut, War Pigs is my track, but would be Hand of Doom. Those two are my favorites. And I think Bill Ward is the superstar on that record.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Good thoughts. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there. This is the hits album. This is the album that has all the songs that, the average person wants to hear from Black Sabbath. And it's got all the tracks that we've heard over and over and over again throughout time. And there's really nothing bad about it. It's a solid album, start to finish. All the tracks are good. The one drawback for me, it's a little thing, it's just that I have heard these songs so much that, like yourself, I don't really need to hear Paranoid again. I don't need to hear Iron Man again. They're good songs. I like them. But, they're ingrained after decades. So when I pull it out now, I want to hear the tracks more like Fairies Wear Boots. The things that you don't hear constantly played in the background of every commercial and all over, Sirius radio. You look to the other tracks that are more interesting to hear now because we haven't heard them a million times. But it's a really, really good album start to finish. And the fact that, now again, at the time, it wasn't unusual for bands to crank out a second album, so quickly after the first. But they've got, a lot tighter. They've got more of a sound that's focused here. They're quickly shedding some of the blues stuff from what they were recording just 6 months ago, and it makes a great album. There's a good reason it's the hits album. It really does have a lot of killer material on it.
Just to add to it, I think the Dirge was getting more into it. The talk of drugs and of course the Vietnam references and things. Death and destruction type of stuff that really started to take hold then and there for Sabbath too, which moving forward.
Yep, that's a good point.
Which I know Geezer,
Yep. Marty, what do you think of this album?
My opinions largely mirror yours. It's kind of it's a very side A, side B album for me. Side A, if I had never heard Paranoid or Iron Man again, I'd be fine. I mean, it's kind of like the Led Zeppelin syndrome. Northern Michigan rock radio killed those two songs for me. And you can't deny the classic War Pigs, but side B is where the real dark, heavy shit hit. Hand of Doom, Electric Funeral, of course, Fairies Wear Boots. I mean,
and not to interrupt you, but Planet Caravan fit. Once I got into the record, it was fitting. I understood it.
I think Pantera killed that song for me.
Oh, yeah. They killed a lot of things for me.
Pantera killed a lot of things for a lot of people. Our hopes, our dreams, our wishes. But
no, I mean it's probably my least listened to Sabbath Ozzy era album because of the hits, and it's not because they're not good hits. It's just that I'm so fucking tired of some of them. You know, I prefer the deep cuts on the albums that come after it much more. But it's not, again, for 1970. I mean, if you look at it, like Kiss were putting out 2 albums a year too because their sales sucked, and it kept them on the road, and that's maybe what happened here too. I don't know, but yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll get finally out of 1970 and move into album number 3, which is this thing right here. So, King, lead us into album number 3, Master of Reality.
Great poster in the original vinyl press. Love the poster inside it. Spooky. Artwork, I don't know what they were. I think they were just too high to even know what was going to be artwork.
Saving money. The record company's saving money.
The engraved Master of Reality was cool. Lyrics on the back. You talk about a fuzzed out dirge record, man. These guys were fucking. They were locked in some room, just weirding the fuck out. And Tony Iommi's like, but what about this Orchid? What about about these little pieces here? I can play, man. Let me show you. I can play. That was coming through too. But come on, this fucking record is so fucking heavy. We talk about the 70s heavy Sabbath. You're starting to go there. You're there. Mm-hmm. I mean, Lord of this World. I mean, Into the Void. I mean, all anything on there. Sweet Leaf coming in with that. I mean, that's a hit without being a hit. It's just cool. Ozzy really takes command. I think his vocals on this record are really the way they kind of record them. It's a little bit more echoey, a little more distant on there. And the Solitude thing with Bill Ward, or how we go there. I don't know what all that was about. They were probably just so fucking high. And I know they'd come to America on Paranoid and finally got to play in America. So that was, part of it. Now they'd broken out of England and all that stuff. And Sabbath was the name, playing the Fillmore in America. And I think their first show ever was in Pennsylvania, if I'm remembering right. And I think that had something to do with it. And I think they actually went very anti-commercial with this record. I think they moved away from the Paranoids and stuff. I don't know if it was, willingly or not, but I kind of read it that way. A very, very dark, the only word I can think of for this is heavy. It's just so heavy. And I think the star shine for this one, I'm going to give it to Geezer Butler. I think the crazy fucking lyrics, they see the Pope on the end of the rope, all that kind of shit in there with his just fucking crazy bass wrapped around Iommi's just screaming, fucking crunching, whatever the fuck he was doing. And of course, Bill and Ozzy, like I said, with this different recording of his voice a little bit, it's just so cool. When I listen to it, it's almost like I got to go into Master of Reality land. Yeah. It's a different headspace than the first two for me, yet it's the same band. And it's more now you're talking more religion, but the lyrics are open to interpretation too. A lot of times he says, "Oh, I'm pro God" and all this stuff, but sometimes you're like, I don't know if you were thinking that then. What they used to have the sink knobs they used to wear as crosses, the little fucking the hot and cold water running knobs they used to wear as crosses, which were really just sink knobs, and all that stuff. And that's when all the witches and stuff, were coming to the shows and stuff. But very, very drug heavy record.
Yeah. This one for me, undoubtedly my favorite of the Ozzy years. While they've got lots of good albums, this is always the one I go back to. Love everything about it. Yeah, as you say, King, this is the album where when people think Black Sabbath today, they tend to think very, very heavy, and it's really the sound on this album I think that defines that really, really heavy. This is now laying the blueprints not just for heavy metal, it's laying the groundwork for doom metal to come down the road. It's laying the groundwork for stoner metal decades later. All that stuff can trace itself back to this album, I think, more so than any of the others in Sabbath's catalog.
I hear Charles Manson rock. I hear fucking Hell's Angels rock. I hear PCP, Killer Weed, 70s biker music in there. I hear all that, what you're saying, the doom metal.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath, they'll eat your children. That's when you believe in record.
Yeah, it's just everything on this one. You've got you've got the gallop in Children of the Grave. It's something a band. Oh, what were they called? Iron Maiden would pick up and run with that kind of gallop into history. And Sabbath's doing it here years before. Steve Harris is even getting a band together. Everything on it is great. Like you said, the performances are great. Ozzy's vocals are incredible. One of the songs I'll shout out in particular, and I think you're right. Oh, well, one thing at a time. I'm getting it on myself. Yeah, I want to shout out Solitude. It is such a weird song in their catalog, and it's such a beautiful song. Ozzy's vocal performance is just really, it's sorrowful, it's mournful, it's heartfelt. It's really good. The flute, which maybe was from Tony's days working with Jethro Tull a little bit. It's just this really tranquil moment in this monster sea of heaviness, and it's beautiful. It shines through all this just grimy, grungy darkness on this album. But I think you're right about something too, King. This is not a hits album. No singles were really released for it meant to be hit singles, and I'd forgot about it. But this week, kind of freshening up on things, I was rereading a little bit of Tony's autobiography, and yeah, he mentioned that after Paranoid, they really intentionally did try to get away from writing singles, that it just wasn't something they were interested in doing. They, obviously Paranoid did good things for them, but, in his words, it kind of tended to attract the screaming teenager fan base. And that wasn't something they were comfortable with. They didn't really connect with that. Like, we never really felt like our music was meant for 14-year-olds listening to Top of the Pops and stuff. That it wasn't where we were trying to be as a band. And so
I think there was a win a date with Bill Ward, a contest in Tiger Beat that year.
Bring your own deodorant.
They should at least got him and Ozzy a pair of shoes each out of it. Damn it.
Maybe so. But there's, like you said, there's plenty of songs on here that we can think of as just classic Sabbath hits. But yeah, they weren't singles, and they weren't meant to. I think maybe the band subconsciously really was like, let's just make this album as fucking heavy and dark as we can so that nobody's going to expect to hear any of these songs on the radio, because we want to get away from that. Paranoid was fun, and we've done it, and now let's not do that again. But yeah, for me, it's the Ozzy album. It always has been, and it always will be. Everything on it just so fucking crushingly heavy. I never get tired of playing this album.
And just before Marty gets taken over, I love the last spoken Children of the Grave outro for there. You talk about something really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is probably my third favorite Sabbath album with Ozzy. And, for 1971, the year I was born, I mean, someone made a comment in the chat that, what does the music industry do with a band like Sabbath with this album in 1971? I'm sure this album, if the first two didn't scare people, this album probably scared the shit out of a lot of people. They didn't know what to do with them. This is a dark, heavy masterpiece, but the last two lines of the album, make a home where love is there to stay, peace and happiness in every day. I mean, that's Geezer's brilliant juxtaposition, a little bit of light with the darkness, and he was a genius. And people saw Sabbath as a dark, evil entity for the sound they produced, but a lot of their lyrics were like, a warning to people about drug problems, a warning about war. There was a lot of darkness in the lyrics, but Geezer always sprinkled it with a lot of light, a lot of positivity, a lot of love, a lot of, they were against the hippie thing, but in a lot of ways, there was a little of that element in there too. It may have been a product of their time. I don't know, but this is a great album.
That's a good observation, brother.
It's a good album, a dark, heavy record, but there's a lot of great messages in these lyrics. I mean, this is the full package. I mean, there's content, there's positivity and darkness all together. Great.
Good deal. All right. So they've got 3 albums under their belt, and in 1972, they will get album number 4 out, which looks like this. King, what do we think about Black Sabbath Volume 4?
Well, first, we'd like to thank the great Coca-Cola company because Cocaine made that record, man. Not Warner Brothers. Cocaine made that record. I love it. I love it. Again, I got lucky when I got a hold of that record. I got it used, and it had the booklet in there, all the the early days edition of the vinyl, where it had the poster. I don't want to call it the poster, but the booklet with them live on stage and seeing their crowd and things. And you got to vibe for it. And I think that record's it's a party record. I really think that's more of a party record. Yeah, that's it. But it used to come with a little booklet that attached to the middle, and you could flip the pages there.
Yeah, it had pages like pictures inserted in the middle of the
There's
gatefold.
a place for it to be glued, but this one did not.
Yep.
They fucked you over.
Yeah. There's a really
I think they were just so fucking high, and they're just like, let's boogie.
Yeah. There's a really good picture of Ozzy in those pictures, and it's got like a purple light filter on him. He just looks so young in that picture. I love that picture of Ozzy.
This record has some of my all-time favorite dirge tunes by them. Cornucopia, Jesus Christ on that one. That one's insane. Then you got the almost Beatlesque St. Vitus dance. It's fucking, that's weird. That was different too. That was as weird to me as Solitude was on the record before that, or even Planet Caravan on the one before that. That was the weird tune. It got to Sabbathy, but it came in with that kind of rock and roll, a little acousticy and stuff, like Marty was saying with the hippie kind of shit. This is something I'd start to touch on a little bit here and there. Then you got this one to me, where you're with Master Reality is the heaviest. This one's the heaviest one to me for overall just attack of it. Under the Sun, Wheels of Confusion, such a good jam. Those middle parts and all these things where they do go to the boogie. Snowblind has the boogie too. I always call it the boogie. It's not the boogie, it's the boogie. I get that from my David Byron Uriah Heep love. But anyway, all those inside, things. What was it? What was on there? The straightener. Some of those things where they were trying to make more money by adding little parts and titles to songs, because they would get paid by how many songs were on the record back then. So there was stuff in there like the straightener and stuff. I'd buy the record like, well, where's the straightener? And you don't realize it's part of something you've already heard. But when I got this fucking record, it blew me away. I think Iommi is the guy on this record. I think he's destroying it. I mean, you got your Supernaut, which was, you might as well say that was kind of one of the first real up tempo, let's go for it kind of things in general. With that, there was a lot of energy behind that one. I wouldn't call it speed metal yet. We're getting to that, but it definitely is a taste of up tempo Sabbath that they didn't have. They had before, but not as much as this record. Like I said, every time they boogied, to us nowadays it would be let's thrash kind of thing. Ozzy's vocals are great. You could tell he's a fried chicken wing, meaning he's high as shit on that whole record. They probably all are. Again, Coca-Cola Company. But I love this record. This is my heaviest Sabbath record.
Interesting. Yeah, for me, it's not a bad album at all, but it's not one of my favorites from the Ozzy. To be honest, it's I think you're exactly right. It's a party album. Had relocated to LA to record it, and things were going. They're flying high at this point. They're doing great on both sides of the Atlantic. They've got everything they want. The world's in the palm of their hand, and they are having fun with it. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That doesn't make the album bad anyway. The production on the album always throws me a little bit, and maybe it is just that it is so bright sounding compared to the albums before it, and especially compared to Master. It's a very light sounding album.
It's cleaner, for sure. It's cleaner.
It's got a very clean sound. In my opinion, it's a little too clean.
I get that.
It could have used just a little dirtying up somewhere in the production. It's got a lot of. This is one for me that has interesting songs. They're starting to really branch out and try a lot of different things, like you said with Laguna Sunrise and St. Vitus Dance and Cornucopia. They're getting more and more all over the place with it. There's of course Changes, which
I forgot to speak of that. That's a beautiful song, man. That's another beautiful thing to me.
It is a pretty song. I don't think it quite works for me personally. But no, it's cool if you like it, of course. The one big heavy track, of course, is Snowblind, is the Crusher, but there are other good ones that get overlooked. Under the Sun doesn't get enough props sometimes from this album. So yeah, it's a varied album. It's a clean album. It's a fun album. For me, it just doesn't have a ton of the essentials that like the first album and Master of Reality does. So solid album. They're having fun. Nothing wrong with that. It's not one I reach for personally a whole lot though. So Marty, King loves it. I'm a little more lukewarm on this one. Where do you stand?
I love it. I think it coming out of Master of Reality, this album has a lot more light in it, a lot more. There's a lot of groove in this album. A lot more groove, less suffocating, heavy weight, more like my favorite song on this is Supernaut. There's an obvious groove on there. That riff will get stuck in my head for days. Wheels of Confusion. There's a lighthearted spirit to that song, and again, it cements Sabbath as a unique entity that no one sounds like this band in 1972. And for me, I remember hearing an interview Ozzy did. Someone asked him why he keeps doing it at his age, and he said, "I still haven't made my Sgt. Pepper." And I think the Beatles' influence on this shit, even though this is way more distorted, downtrodden sounding. I mean, songs like Changes, you can hear the Beatles in some of this early Sabbath stuff. You really can.
I do. I hear the Beatles on St. Vitus Dance and Changes on this. I agree.
Yeah,
I do. I think that might have been Ozzy's influence there. I can't speak so much for St. Vitus, but I think definitely Changes.
And it's obviously an influence. Obviously, there's probably a lot more shitty drugs than what maybe the Beatles were smoking going on here. But this is a great album. I mean, it's one I can listen to from front to back and not hate any of the songs. And the same with Master Reality. It's a great album. I don't know what more to say. It's very groovy. Coming out of Master Reality, like I said, they offered a bit more light and more of a lighthearted spirit to it, I think.
I would use that as the word. I think he just nailed it. I would call that album groovy.
Yep.
Because it's got that, it's dark, it's still sinister in its ways, but it's got, like he said, there's a little bit more going on. There's a little more magic in this one.
More movement. There's more movement in the riff.
Not in Alan's world, but
yeah. No, it's there. It just doesn't click with me as much as y'all. But that's
I get
okay.
you. I got people that live for that record, and I got people that don't like it that much. I mean, it is a lot of different ways. Maybe it's a lot of timing for me too with that one too. Just that era I was hitting it, and I think that record's got a lot more, like a little bit more progressive coming, which I know we're getting to now. It's sort of like they're starting to like, hey, you know what? Some of these longer songs, we're getting a feel for this too.
Yep. And you're right, King. This does feel more like a Tony album. This is, a lot of this is Tony starting to want to.
Yeah, that's Tony Iommi's the star for that record for me.
Yeah, and he's wanting to try some different things, which again is something he comments on about the time.
Yeah, all three of us, none of us mentioned Laguna Sunrise, which
Yeah, but
he plays beautiful stuff there. I think he, again, like with the Orchid and everything else, he always wanted to be like, I can play too. Like I got this side of me too,
Yeah. Marty, I think mentioned it earlier that Sabbath definitely by the second and third albums, they're very much to the popular society. They're the witchcraft band, they're the Black Satan band, blah blah blah, and they're also just they're kind of the brain dead heavy band. A lot of these early heavy metal bands didn't get good press in the day. Bands like and metal or metal adjacent bands, Grand Funk always got horrible album reviews and press and stuff, but they could sell out Madison Square Garden, and these places in New York.
The Beatles record at Shea Stadium, right?
Yeah, they could sell them out in a matter of days. People loved the music, but critically they just got slammed. And I think guys like Tony really took that a little personally, and over time they made an issue that they wanted to demonstrate that we are real musicians and we really can play some good shit, and you are selling us short by claiming we're just a bunch of knuckle dragging cavemen, because that's not what we are. We're better than that. And I think you start to see Tony trying to prove some things on this album.
Right.
All right. But then we get into the next album. So we're in 73. And
I'll be right back.
No problem. So yeah, we get to 73, and it's already album number 5, and it's of course this one, which once you see that cover, you never really forget it.
Oh, a beautiful artwork. Both sides of it together, just so amazing.
That's
I love the witch on the first one. The next three are what they are is what they are. They're classic for what they are. They're symbols, and of of what they are. This one here, I love this artwork.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, this has to be Sabbath's best artwork until at least Mob Rules.
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
Yeah, Mob Rules is my all-time favorite artwork, but this is right there.
Yeah, we'll in part 2 we'll talk about Stout's artwork. That cover art is just fucking unbelievable. But this one's right there with it. I remember seeing this for the first time and just creeping the fuck out about it.
Yeah, it's haunting for sure. It's evil.
Yeah, and like you said, especially compared to the other ones. The other ones are more simple. They're well known, but
yeah, they're landmarks now of Sabbath. You couldn't see any of those album covers differently now, but that one really shook me at the time.
Yeah,
this record here, if you're coming to me, this record here, I bought this one full price at Musicland. I think I paid $9.99 in like 1982 for that record. And for the longest time, this is my favorite Ozzy Sabbath record because I love the synthesizer, the keyboards they brought in, with Rick Wakeman coming in from Yes and all this. I love this stuff. Yeah, you got your
Wakeman's on this. I did not know that.
Rick Wakeman is on there.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
He did it for free too.
I thought you were
pulling long hits if I read the book right.
He did it for free.
They paid him in beer because he would not accept any money.
That's right. And this record, I love this record. This is another Tony Iommi record. We're going to get on that little Tony Iommi roll here. This record, I fucking love. From the just, again, it might be too clean. I think Alan might be here again when it comes time for production. Too clean, a little bit, less of that. But Sabbath Bloody Sabbath out of the gate, what a riff. I know they said they got stuck on Headspace and they had a writer's block getting into this record. But when they got there, man. I mean, Who Are You? What a weird Ozzy Osbourne thing. He's starting to show his fucking mental illness in the musical form.
Unsettled.
You go anywhere, Killing Yourself to Live. What lyrics? Geezer Butler. Thank you very much for those. This entire record, get it. Spiral Architect, National Acrobat, anything, Sabracadabra. There's nothing. Fluff, even Fluff, as just another Iommi I can play piece. This fucking record I love. Now for this record, I know it's an Iommi record. I'm giving this record to Ozzy. Ozzy's the star of this one to me because he's shining outside of his typical, let me just get up there and sing my parts. He's actually putting more character in this than the other records up to now. He's starting to play the character in the songs and, the preacher man, whether he's like Marty was saying, whether he's preaching good, bad, or otherwise. It's all in there to be had. I love the production personally. I like the, I know Emerson, Lake and Palmer is getting popular kind of vibe to this stuff. Yes is getting popular. The prog stuff is taking on. Sabbath, hints at this. There's some jazzy fusion stuff in here. There's some proggy stuff. There's some hard rock stuff in there. There's your heavy guitar of Iommi. Geezer Butler plays his ass off through this thing. And I love the way he interacts with the keyboards on this thing. This record for me is a perfect record. I'm not going to tell you yet my favorite. Up to all these, I'll tell you my favorite, but that's my second. For the longest time, it was number one, my Ozzy record. That's my number two Ozzy era Black Sabbath record.
Mine too.
A fucking masterpiece.
Yep, it's these days. I think it's become my second favorite Ozzy album over time too. And the production of this one, no, I think it sounds really good this time.
Oh, you like it? Good. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, no problem with it at all. It's got so many good tracks on it, and it's definitely Sabbath. When you take a step back, they are moving in a little bit more, like you said, the proggy direction, and it throws you off a little bit, of course, because it starts, with that monster of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which it's almost like this song could have been on Master of Reality a couple of years earlier and would not have been out of place at all. But after that, they start doing a lot of different things. You've got National Acrobat is a really well put together song. It's deceptively intricate, how that song's put together. It's really
that's good. That's good observation there on that. I agree. It's weird. It all rolls smoothly, but it's pretty progressive.
It really is
choppy.
No, Sabracadabra is solid. Like you said, Killing Yourself to Live. Just geez. Who Are You is a song that. You nailed it right. It's Ozzy, playing and doing this, thing with this big Moog that synthesizer he bought, and it's not my favorite song, but it does exactly what it's meant to. It's got this. It really does have this just kind of creepy, paranoid, again, I'll use the word unsettled. It gives me this very unsettled vibe listening to that song, which really fits in with Ozzy's, the persona and such that, he developed. So it's not my favorite tune, but it definitely does its job. It's very effective. And then just glancing at the track list, wrapping up, Spiral Architect, another one that, is a fan favorite. So yeah, the guys are really hitting a stride here. And yeah, the backstory, like you said, King, on this was they went back to LA. They had such a good time with Volume 4 that they went back to the same house and the same studio and wanted to, recreate the experience, and they fucking couldn't.
Right.
Tony had writer's block, and
his version, dealer was out of town.
They said just little things were off. When they went back to the studio, they had done like some renovations and put some giant equipment in the rooms that I think Stevie Wonder had been using before them, and it threw the vibe off in the studio. Tony was having trouble writing. Yeah, and he kind of alludes that by that point he felt like he was having more trouble motivating the other guys to
I could
really
roll
up their sleeves.
I can see the laziness of drugs kind of getting into it too. Like, let's get the fucking record out. Let's get on the fucking road again. Let's do drugs. Let's party. They were coming off that party. And here's the difference for me. As we said, Volume 4 is a party record. This is a studio record. This is a studio record. And just something, not to interrupt you, but three big things. First off, they had the stuff with the ghosts with this record. They had all those hauntings going on when they were recording and fucking with each other. There was one thing. Two, they shot their first video, which Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, that thing which didn't surface for a few years with the crazy dog, them out in the woods and all this. So this was their first, I would assume, the fucking label saying, hey, we get some more visuals out there. At the time, they probably never on TV. I don't know what the outlets were besides, the Don Kirshner's and Midnight Special kind of things. And third off, can't forget the fold out where they're sitting there with half their images and by the I think that's a couch there, if I remember right, of that, the ghostly image there, which is very fitting with the artwork. I think it really fits the record well.
Yeah, and those are good points. And you're right that, this one, they were trying to keep the party going, but it didn't work out. And so, they ended up relocating to a studio back in London, and it was like this big old castle, with dungeons, and that's where all the ghostly shit started happening and freaking them out. And it kind of kickstarted them at the same, while it was, wigging them out, it also really got them in gear. And because Tony's like, we were all sitting there freaked out and paranoid again. And all of a sudden, blam, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, that main riff comes out of nowhere. The song writes itself after that. And, it broke the dam. They got that different setting, that different environment really got them going. But it wasn't the party environment. They weren't doing it in LA. They're doing it in this creepy old fucking castle somewhere in England. And so, it becomes a lot more of a studio. Let me ask you this. Do you remember this? I think this was the first album they started actually getting some good press. This might have been the one that they started getting some better press. I think you're right. Yeah, I think this was the one where some people finally started to take notice and was like, hey, these guys can play something other than just paranoid. That they were starting to finally get crack through a little bit and get that recognition, because they were incorporating more stuff too. They were always looking at more sounds, experimenting with the Moog and just trying all these different little things to see what they could incorporate. They were really flexing themselves as musicians, and they finally got credit for it. Right. All right, Marty, I've babbled about it enough. What's your take here?
This is, for the longest time, was my favorite Ozzy album, for sure. And that has been dethroned, but we're going to get into that album next. But this album is really great. And like King said, it's very much a studio record. I think looking back, they cleaned up the guitars a little bit too much. They're a little clean. But other than that, the songs on this are great. I personally love the keyboard shit on here. Like, Who Are You? It's such a different style for Sabbath. And Ozzy sells it. He sells that song so great. That simple Moog line. And I think this album, I love Ozzy's performance on it, but I think it is at the absolute top of his register. I don't think he is going to. You can hear him kind of straining a little bit, but he's got so much heart and passion in what he's doing and the words he's singing. It really sells this material a lot. But if he ever had to go higher than this, it might have killed him. But Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Natural Spiral Architect. Holy shit. Killing Yourself to Live. They're amazing songs. There's so much. And, you know, if they said they had writer's block for this, I mean, procrastination is the mother of
I
invention.
wish I could have that writer's block.
Yeah, I wish, you know, that fucking happened to me and I turned out an album like that. And the album cover is so killer. I used to have an awesome Sabbath Bloody Sabbath shirt, and I ended up giving it to Stephen O'Malley because I stayed in New York at a Megalomaniacs function. I stayed at him and his wife Spider's residence for a couple days. He loved the shirt so much I gave it to him. I regret it because it was a killer shirt. But King, get on that.
I'm on it.
Get on it. But great album. For the longest time, my favorite. This is my second favorite Sabbath Ozzy album. It's amazing, and you know, for a studio product, I think they really opened up their minds and experimented a lot more, and it really, they did a great job. It benefited their sound a lot. I think the introduction to I did not know it was Rick Wakeman. That is killer. But great album.
Good deal. All right, so yeah, they go through 73. They've gone from strength to strength. They actually don't put out a studio album in 74. So for the first time in several years, you know, they're active. But it wouldn't be until 75 that we got album number 6, which is this one, which the cover is not quite as strong as on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Just say
that's the craziest fucking cover ever made, man.
He's got an armadillo in those trousers, I hope.
That is the craziest record. That record there, Alan, was another one I bought right at the $4 mark. Mm-hmm. I saw Ozzy in that fucking thing. I thought it was Cass Elliot when I first looked at it. That was Mama Cass. I put that fucking record on. It blew my fucking face off. Hole in the Sky. Holy fucking shit. Now, I'm going to compare this with Kiss Destroyer to Kiss Rock and Roll Over. I think the guy said, fuck all this studio shit. Let's get back to just rocking this motherfucker. They simplified, not in a bad way. They still had their moments, but they definitely got a little bit heavier, definitely darker, and this record surfaced. And this fucking record is vicious. Marty knows it. Hole in the Sky came in I love the sound of the record. It has more of to me, a wall of noise on this record. It's not the best mix they've ever had, but it's brash, it's fucking intense. And I think on this record, there's no standout star. I think it's Sabbath is on all cylinders rolling here. Mm-hmm. Don't Start Too Late came and went. I don't know if that was just a weird thing like FX on Volume 4 where we're stoned, let this play, let's go. Symptom of the Universe is speed metal. It is, right there with starting it all up. That riff is up there with Smoke on the Water. Everybody knows it. Anybody doesn't agree, he's lost their fucking marbles with fucking Ozzy on the Who Are You track. And it just goes and goes. I mean, it doesn't let up. I mean, the thrill of it all, the Bill Ward stomp, Super Czar, where he was going for some kind of like marching army thing, was insane. And then my favorite track on the record, Am I Going Insane Radio. I love this song. It is so weird. It is so offbeat. Ozzy had to have been at the loony bin for this one. It is so fucking, I don't know who the hell else could have recorded this thing and made it work, but I love Am I Going Insane Radio. My son loves this song too. We play it all the time. It's weird. It's almost like a la 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 song. I could see fucking, I don't know who I could see doing it, but I could definitely see it being a hit in a weird one-hit wonder kind of thing, almost like a Whip It Devo kind of thing where it's just so bizarre.
And the drum
record that's so heavy, so guitar.
The drum shit on there sounds like he's beating on a wet pizza box. That weird
exactly.
It's fucking weird. Why would it's like them experimenting,
It seems like it was probably written the same time as Who Are You? It's got a similar thing, but the way they play it and the way the pace of the song is just weird. I mean, let's get the Rit. I mean, is there a moment on this record that isn't just perfect? Another perfect Sabbath record for me. Another perfect Sabbath record for me. This is perfect. And from the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath to Sabotage, that's a nonstop just intensity. I mean, that time for them, they were on all cylinders here whether Ozzy was going, they said he was nuts, they had to lock him up, and all this shit. And they're looking at them on the cover of those records, especially Ozzy and Bill, who were probably the two, yin and yang there, fucking out doing their thing, the terrible duo.
Ozzy's wearing a moo-moo.
Look at those fucking things. He's like, Bill didn't know. He was in his undies. I'm in my undies. Yeah. And look at fucking Geezer, man. He's like the polyester look almost, man.
He's dressed
like he's going disco dancing. And Naomi has to sit down. I got to sit down,
Well, he wanted to be closer to that armadillo.
This is where Spinal Tap got it from, right? But it just fuck. That's another perfect record. That's another place like Master Reality where I have to go to Sabotage Land. It has its own vibe, its own sound. It's a wall. It's a white. I don't want to call it. It's just brash. The word for me on this album is brash, and I love it. It's 100 out of 100 for me.
That's a great word for it.
But not my favorite Ozzy album.
Okay. Fair.
Oh, I know where you're gonna land. I know where it's coming. I know what's happening here.
Yeah. It's brash is a great word for it. Yeah, they dirty up the sound a little bit again. The last two albums, they've been getting brighter, cleaner sound. They've been a little fancier. They've been a little proggy. And yeah, this album, it's it's got that wall of sound about it. It's very clangy. It's a crash banging wallop kind of sound approach to it, and it works really, really good. The heavy songs end up sounding very heavy. They benefit from that. The other songs, the more off the wall songs, like "Am I Going Insane?" Yeah, it's another one. I think you're right. It sounds a whole lot like "Who Are You?" and it's got that same very unsettling vibe to it.
Like the wind the box up and let the Joker pop up and sing. That's what I get from it. Am I going insane? And then the voices at the end leading into the next track, those goes from that like happy, fucking joyous, weird, the clown funhouse into that dark dirge lunacy of the psycho band, the loony band.
Yep. Yeah, this one for me, the first few times I heard it, it took me a little while to get into this album. This was not one that I put on and instantly loved. It was one I put on, it's just like, okay, I know a couple of these songs already, with Symptom of the Universe and such. The rest of it took a few listens, and it helped, sitting down, looking through. This was when we're looking through the lyrics, paying more attention to them, and kind of figuring out the headspace for the band made it click a lot more. This was a period when the band was starting to have a lot of issues. They were having management issues. They were lawsuits were popping up here and there. They describe it very much. They'd be, they'd spend half the day recording and half the day talking to lawyers, and it made for a real different vibe than any of the other albums they had done before. They couldn't. The party was over to some degree, and they weren't, squirreled away in this creepy castle where they could focus on a studio album. They had all these distractions, and it turns up in the lyrics here and there. It's the whole reason there's a song called "The Writ," and it's the whole reason the album is called "Sabotage." That they really just felt like there were a lot of things lining up against them at this time, financially, with management, with just outside forces that were really fucking with them. And I think it made them want to play a little bit more of a louder, angrier album once
again.
Huge
coke bills.
Hey, that shit ain't free after the first hit, man. But it's even Tony says, like, it really got us, it brought us back a little closer together than we had been for a year or two, because it kind of was this, us versus the world mentality once again. It's just like, you guys are trying to crush us with all this bullshit. Well, fuck you. We just want to play this real fucking heavy music, and that's what we're going to do, and we'll wade through this bullshit because we have to, but you're not going to stop us.
Right.
And so, that's looking at the album through that lens, is just like, okay, I get this album a lot better now. And I like a lot of the stuff on it. It's obviously, I've already named my top two, so it's going to be third at best. But it's still a very strong album. It's definitely, it's the one that has grown on me the most over the years. So it's a very solid album. So Marty, throwing it over to you.
This is my favorite Ozzy era, and the mix. It's so weird because the album is so heavy, but it sounds like it's off in the distance, coming like transmitted from another dimension. I don't know. It's fucking weird. Hole in the Sky. I mean, one thing that kind of returned to this album big time is groove. Like Hole in the Sky. I mean, that's a fucking groovy fucking riff. Even Symptom of the Universe. Speed metal, Birth, maybe, yeah, but there's a groove in that heaviness. And
what about that ending of Symptom of the Universe? They almost sound like they're playing like the Grateful Dead. That's almost a Grateful Dead finale to that tune, believe it or not. In my head, it is.
You know, you're right.
It changes direction completely. Yeah.
Except it doesn't suck.
Yeah, right.
But no, this is my favorite. It just seems like the songs are so together, so focused. I mean, I like this is for the longest time my favorite, but it's very experimental. This seems to be a lot less experimental, and like you guys said, just fucking weird, kind of off the hinges. Is like a lot, like you said, a lot of outside forces pulling at them. Their drug use, management problems, lawsuits, money problems. But at the heart of it, it's a heavy, dark, groovy, fucked up, weird record, and it's so good. It's so good. And usually when I grab Sabbath, this is the one I'm going for. Hole in the Sky is my favorite song on here. It's just such a great opener.
That's a monster. You're right. That's a great opener.
Monster. The riffs on it, the harmony on it, it's just so fucking good. And it just, there's an urgency to it. It's weird. I can't really explain it. But I mean, I was sold at the fucking red leotards.
I mean, Bill's
fucking Ozzy on there, man. Ozzy, as weird as Bill is, Ozzy, man, he is fucking freaking.
The thing that freaks me out about
Piper Laurie and Carrie, man.
The thing that freaks me out about those fucking leotards is there's feet in it. I mean, it isn't just like a pair of pants. They're footies. It's like someone's like a little kid's jammies.
They are allegedly Bill's wife's tights that they showed up for the photo shoot that day, and essentially had like no direction in terms of wardrobe, and he just turned to his wife and said, "Can I borrow your tights? I don't know what else to wear."
Well, you look good in them, love. I might as well fucking try him.
I guess she said yes, because there he is.
My favorite Ozzy album. It's a great, weird masterpiece. I love it.
Yep, it's a cool album. I do think, I mean, you're right, Marty. It is. It's a dark, heavy, fucked up album. It still does have a lot of progressive things going on in those songs. Sometimes it's a little hidden behind the production and such, but it definitely shouldn't be undersold. It's not a return to Master of Reality heaviness. There's still a lot of, they've grown. They've, done these other albums.
Megalomania definitely probably the track for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Megalomania's got that. I mean, what they're trying to do, trying things out with, Superstar and stuff. They're incorporating the things they've picked up along the way. So it has a different feel from Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, but it still has a lot of progressive elements in there. It's not a one-trick pony of an album. It's not that it's just all heavy, dark tunes or anything. They're still doing a lot of cool shit in these tracks. It's just you don't notice it quite as much. It's not as quite out in front as it was maybe on the previous album. All right. Well, with
King's favorite album coming up.
He's got 2 shots left, unless he's sandbagging one of the early albums.
Oh, no, okay.
We'll find out. We'll save it. That's okay. But yeah, so then we get to 76, and we have 2 robots fucking on an elevator. Technical ecstasy. King, I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to let you jump in and lead the way on this.
The last Ozzy record from his era back then that I purchased, and I didn't actually purchase it. A friend of mine, Jamie Brown, who was playing in a band with me in '83, purchased this record. This one kind of was never in the store for a while. We got a hold of it. He bought it. It had the lyric sheet inside of it, which a lot of the Black Sabbath albums did not have. Master Reality on the back, but this one had the lyric sheet inside of it, and I loved it from the get-go. My friend Jamie did not like it as much. Backstreet Kids, still one of my favorite Ozzy Sabbath songs out of the gate. I love the way that sounds. I love the artwork. I got it from the get-go. I saw the pussy lips, blah, 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 and all that kind of shit, whatever you want to call it. I saw all that even as a kid. Of course, as a kid, you see that everywhere you go if you're a 14-year-old boy. Anyway, You Won't Change Me sounds kind of like what Ozzy went on to do solo kind of stuff a little bit. I hear that what Ozzy would come to Blizzard of Oz a few years later with some of that stuff. I definitely thought It's All Right was bizarre. in a weird way. Wasn't sure about that one. Still not sure about that one, but enjoy it for what it is. Gypsy, neat as hell. I do remember on this one, what is this? Jeff Woodruff on keyboards on this one. Am I remembering that right? Is it Jeff Woodruff playing on this?
Mine does not have
Geoff Woodruff.
I'm trying to remember.
Was that it? Was that who it was on this one?
Let me double check.
See if you see it anywhere. Anyway, I like the keyboards. There was nice little touches. It wasn't Sabbath Bloody Sabbath heavy on that. And then just going into side 2, She's Gone. Man, that's a haunting tune.
Yeah.
Dirty Women, we all know is a classic.
Yeah, it's Woodruff.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yep. All Moving Parts Stand Still. Weird. I Like Choking Toys. What the hell is going on? And that's what I get of this record. What the hell is going on? They seemed lost, but so good a band that even lost, they were pretty damn good. Yeah. And that's what I think about this album. Pretty damn good. I still don't click with It's All Right. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just Bill Ward coming out and it's weird. I don't hate it. It's Beatles-ish. I get that. I can see John Lennon like, hey, this song Yoko wrote's going on the record, and Bill's going to sing it. But anyway, I really enjoy the record. I find with this one, what I've read over the years, and I'm sure Alan will detail this even more, Tony Iommi was doing everything he could was to get these guys in the studio and get things done. And they pretty much walked for most of it. And he was just stuck there doing most of everything on this record. Yep. I could tell the wheels were falling off the band a little bit, even in 83 when I first heard it, 82, 83. I can't remember what year we got it. But anyway, I could tell that, okay, this is one of those albums that's not so much loved. I was getting it like, I was comparing it to other bands of like an Aerosmith or something when you saw the wheels are falling off kind of thing. But I tell you one thing, earlier today, I got the 4 CD thing of Technical Ecstasy, and I heard some of these tunes, alternate takes and different mixes with a lot less keyboards, even the little bit of keyboards that's on there. And I tell you what, I'm hearing, if you get to listen to these, if you haven't, I'm hearing a lot more of Sabotage style before they added this to it. I don't know if Tony Iommi had too much time to sit there and like, let's add this, because I'm hearing there was harmonica that got taken off of this with Rock and Roll Doctor and things like that. But they were definitely high as shit. They were definitely probably loose. They probably were still, this was probably when they were at the worst with their management, if I remember right. Like things were just fucked. Yeah. And I think Tony Iommi was just trying to hold ship. I think a little bit they were trying to figure out what they wanted to do. I think bands like Styx and Journey and things were coming up and things. They were starting to have minor hits with what, the prog bands were turning more into song bands, which was starting to happen about this time. And I don't think that was really them, but I think that Sabbath kind of took that into consideration. And I'm not sure if they were going for hits with It's All Right or Rock and Roll Doctor or even Backstreet Kids type of stuff. But it definitely seemed like there was a loss of complete direction on this record. But like I said, even as a not a perfect record, it was still very good because the band was that talented. And I don't really want to give the super thing to anything. I'll give it to Tony Iommi if I have to, because he glued it all together and kept it together. But it's a loose, odd record, and it's definitely the most awkward to me of the Ozzy albums back then.
Yeah, that's a very good summary of it. For a long time growing up, this was one of the Sabbath albums everybody always said steer clear of. People really disliked this album, and I didn't hear it for a long time because of that. Just people be like, "You don't listen to that shit." So like, hey, okay, I'll buy something else. I've only got a little bit of money anyway. Eventually, got around to checking it out, and just like, this actually is not a bad album. It is not a great album. It's not killer. It's kind of like you said, King. There are problems with this album, but there's still Black Sabbath, and they still pull it off. Just it is a step down from what they'd done up to this point. Management, and contracts and stuff are a huge issue. Like you said, Tony's essentially puts this whole album together by himself while everybody else is down at the bar drinking. Something I've seen referenced, in Tony's book too. This, of course, coming out in '76. This is right when punk hits, and the music scene really starts sort of changing direction, and it's paying attention to other things. And he mentions that they started to feel a little out of place. They had been a going entity for at least about 8 years at this point. They've got a lot of miles on them by this point as a band. And all of a sudden, there's a lot more attention being shown to, much more younger bands, much more aggressive bands. And they kind of started to figure out, it's like, where do we really fit in with this? I liked your Styx comment because, I hear a little bit of those kind of bands creeping in to the sound here too. Styx is one that I've always thought was like, yeah, there's hints of that here, that they're not just doing progressive the way they were, 1 or 2 albums ago, but they're getting, like you said, that more song-oriented approach to it.
Do you personally think that Backstreet Kids was kind of a paying attention to punk?
I don't know if it was paying attention to punk or just paying attention to other things coming out around the time. Maybe. I've never read anything that directly said that, this was about the change to punk and such. But there are good songs here. You Won't Change Me is a very cool one. It's all right.
It's a very haunting song.
It is, and it's delivered well. It's a stronger one on the album. I personally, I don't like It's All Right with Bill singing. It just doesn't, not that it's a bad song, but I think Marty mentioned it. It's a Beatles song. Yeah. And I'm not a big Beatles fan.
Not even hiding it. Not even hiding it.
No, not even trying to hide it. But Gypsy is a cool track. All Moving Parts I like a lot. It harkens back a little bit to like National Acrobat, where it's
Bill Ward that's Bill Ward's shiner on this album.
It's got that little bit of a funky groove to it, but it doesn't take over the song. It still sounds really. It's very cleverly done. Rock and Roll Doctor is okay. They repeat the title way too many times.
Right.
She's Gone is got kind of that haunting vibe. Dirty Women is the one I think most people. If people are going to begrudgingly say, okay, I'll pick one song, Dirty Women is the one that usually gets, the nod.
I always found that odd that when they came back and, with Ozzy and all these, Ozfest and everything, all this stuff, they pulled that one out. It was just weird.
Yeah, that was the one they
took Dirty Women out of all songs. That's weird. I'm glad they did. It's a good tune. Unfortunately, they didn't have the same headspace to pull it off correctly all the years later.
Sure.
But anyway, it was odd.
It's a good tune. I think it's, if most people look at this album, I think that's the one track they'll point to me like, okay, I at least like that one. It's the desert plains of this album, compared to Priest's discography. So, but there's nothing on here I'd say that's absolutely essential. If I'm going to put together a greatest hits or personal mix of Sabbath songs, I don't know if I'd put much, if anything, from this album on. But as an album, I do think it's good. I think it's underrated as an album. I think people give it too much shit. And it's still a good listen, even though it's not their finest hour. So, Marty?
I would say a little bit above average. I want to call it mediocre because I wouldn't call it that. But I would say, again, even in a barely above average Sabbath album, it's still very good.
Yeah, and I think that album proves this, that even when they're not at their best, they could still put out a good album at this point. All right, Marty, let's give you a chance to weigh in here.
Of the Ozzy years, I too was told by friends and seen on media outlets that this was the worst Ozzy album. So this is the least listened to Ozzy album in my collection. I bought it late, but I was surprised. I did enjoy it. But it's like I said, the Beatles are back, and It's All Right is without a doubt a Beatles song. My favorite song on this album is Gypsy. It's got a very mystical quality, which fits the lyrics very well. But you can tell this album was like in desperation, kind of clumped together. And like Dirty Women, Rock and Roll Doctor, those are just ham-fisted, knuckle-dragging rock songs that aren't necessarily great. They just kind of are. If you like Sabbath, you like Ozzy's singing, you're going to like the songs, even though they're not great. They're not good songs. You Won't Change Me is a great song. There's good stuff. I like the album, but you could tell the band's in trouble. You could tell they're coming apart at the seams. You could tell it was, like King said, I haven't heard it yet, but the 4 CD set, the demos sound heavier. They sound more like Sabotage. You can tell there's a lot of studio sheen put on this. Maybe they tried to lump this shit together and polish a turd more or less. Not that it's
Right.
a
Wait,
turd.
yeah. Wait. If you guys, when you guys play this, when you hear the remix the guy did on CD2 of the 4-set, wait till you hear the bass on Backstreet Kids when it comes in. You're going to hear things that you could never hear. It almost changes the riff. You know, the dan 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 dan. That whole section's weird, and then dan 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 dan. You almost like these extra fills of geezer. It's like they there's a button here that says bass, and added the bass to the mix because
Right.
it is weird. When you hear it, you're going to be like, man, this is fucking weird how much stuff is not in the final mix on the version we all know. That's weird. And that's not even the one with the demos. That's just the remix of the tapes that they did use.
Wow.
So when you hear that, listen for yourself. You'll really get it right from the get-go.
Will do.
He probably pined over this. Tony probably pined over this a lot. He probably knew this wasn't up to par with their back catalog. So he tried to put a lot of studio shine on it. Try to bring it up to a level where he thought it would be passable. It's good. I like it. I kind of regret not getting it for as long as I did, but it's a tough album. It's a confused album, but they kind of redeem themselves with the album after it.
Yeah. One thing. I'll bet you were right, Marty, that they may have overdone it a little bit. In terms of album sales, the band was slipping by this point. Sabotage had not done as well sales-wise as any of its predecessors. And again, for me, reading in Tony's autobiography, it seems he did feel some pressure that they needed to make sure that the album was really solid. And since it was largely left to him, he may have over-tweaked it, trying to deliver something that showed that no, we're still really on track. We're really tight. We can put together a really tight album. And yeah, he may have just overdid it.
Well,
especially
I will say, King,
saying about some of the rough mixes and some of the demos and stuff it may have he may have just taken it too far, trying to get them back on track. And of course, it backfired. And this album actually sold much worse than Sabotage did. Antonio felt, that was, a big disappointment because he put a lot of time in the studio getting this thing put together for him.
King, you can attest to this, being in the studio over 1 million albums, and myself being in a band. You can overmix something, and you spend so much time trying to get to something that you're never going to achieve. There might have been an earlier mix that's way better, but you spent so much time and money getting it to this level. You kind of got to. That's where you got to live and die. It's a hill you die upon.
Yeah, exactly. You got to give yourself a cutoff point, because you can. I mean, when it's done, you're always going to go back and go, "Damn, I could have done this. I could have done that." There's going to have to be a cutoff point, just because there is.
Yeah.
But I know some friends have done some stuff, and they've gone and go back in and totally change things, and I'm like, you get a whole new headspace, and he's probably sitting there, Naomi, going, all right, well, I've got all this time on my hands. What will this sound like with keyboards here and all this? Because when you hear these demos, a lot of that's not there. If it was there, it's taken out. Like there's harmonica on shit on here and things. They just either he added, deducted, whatever he did. I think I agree with you. I think he sat too long, and he had too much time on his hands. Getting back to sticks again.
Yep.
And fucking, I think that was it. I mean, I also think he was, in a spot. They were probably like, look, we need you guys to have a hit again. This is Sabbath. They were a money-making machine. What's going on? And he's like, fucking geezer, Ozzy and Bill aren't fucking here. Holy shit. I'm up Shit's Creek. And he's just trying to twit it the best he can. And he's not all there. He had his big, great cocaine splurge going on at the time too. So, it was just, the wheels were coming off, man. The wheels were coming off.
Yep.
And again, he probably knew it wasn't up to par with the past. So, I'll throw a harmonica on it. We got to be experimental. We got to do all this Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, this cool shit. Well, here's a harmonica. Do something. It'll harken back to our first album. It's like you're drawing its fucking straws at that point. You're trying to make the best of a desperate situation. And the album is probably as good as it could have been for that time.
Yep.
Right.
And the wheels, would only get looser moving forward. Before the next album comes out, Ozzy quits for a period of time, and the band's in a lurch. They try out Dave Walker, tried writing some stuff with him, and then Ozzy comes back into the fold, but he doesn't want to do any of the stuff they've been working on with Dave, and they've got nothing to work with. And this is around the time, either right before or after this, they're out on tour with Van Halen, and everyone sees the changing of the guard happening on that tour. That and even Tony said the band felt it a lot themselves. That you've got this new hotshot guitarist blowing everyone away with this crazy finger tapping, and David Lee Roth doing somersaults on stage and all this acrobatic shit. And you're like, and we've been doing this for 10 years. We can't do that. Shit.
Ozzy's
We're
just doing this.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and the interviews they're doing at the time, I was like, it's been 10 years. How long do you think you guys are really going to keep at this? And he's like, shit, we're only like in our early 30s, and these people are treating us like, it's time to put us out to pasture. And these younger bands are coming out, and they're definitely upstaging us. And the situation with Ozzy has gotten very bad at this point. And so, by the time this, the last one comes out, towards the end of '78, the band's, in a real weird place. And even though the album title is "Never Say Die," I think everyone knows the band's on life support by the time this was actually released. So, King, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, the artwork was supposed to be what Rainbow used for Difficult to Cure. That was the original artwork. So they went with this. And a lot of people, I was talking about this on Facebook a while back. If you look, there's a lot of different presses of that vinyl. Some of them have different faces in the clouds. Some of them have airplane pilots in them. Others have different faces depending on where you bought the record and what time it was pressed. So there's a lot of things inside those clouds that are faces. I don't even know which one you're holding up. There's ones where they have the airline guys in the pilots in it. There's another one with like someone kind of like, I don't want to say they're screaming, but some kind of facial thing. They're not all the same. The artwork varies in those clouds, believe it or not. Never Say Die. King Fowley's favorite Black Sabbath album with Ozzy. This is my favorite album of Black Sabbath with Ozzy Osbourne as the vocalist. I find this record one of the most hypnotic records I've ever heard by any band. Any band. You can put it on, and it comes in with Never Say Die, which is by the book Sabbath. They got the stomp. It's similar to Boys Are Back in Town, which James Danzo, who is or isn't listening or watching, would agree with. It's very close to that similarity of that. Comes in, and they coming in with we're back, we're still alive, we're kicking ass. Well, I love that tune. It's great. It's phenomenal. But what comes next as this album progresses? Johnny Blade. Junior's Eyes, absolutely my favorite Black Sabbath. It's not even, but it is epic. I love this. I love the deepest stuff, the weirdest, most fucked up breakout, the horn section, Swinging the Chains, Over to You. I love it. But the standout track besides Junior's Eyes, it's a dead even weight, Air Dance.
Yeah.
I love Air Dance. The sound of this record reminds me of, and this is so weird, the sound of this record reminds me of the Phantasm soundtrack. I get this weird, spooky vibe. I know not all of it's even spooky, and they're all over the place. There's love songs. There's whatever you want to call this stuff. The death of Ozzy's father on Junior's Eyes, Johnny Blade, the knife-wielding punk in the streets kind of shit, Shockwaves, things like that. I just don't know what it is exactly to this day. I can't place it, but about 3 years ago now, one day I put this record on. I said, it's my favorite. It passed Sabbath Bloody Sabbath for me. And I don't think a lot of people would agree, but I think this album has gone up in the rankings of people enjoying it more now than ever before. I just love what they came up with. I know they just pretty much set up in a theater and jammed all day. They just were doing open jams and coming up with pieces for this record. But Ozzy may not wanted to be there, and he may have been fucked up on drugs and fat and overweight and all whatever the hell they were talking about, missing gigs. And Van Halen might have been, coming along. But this record, as a vinyl studio record, is just incredible to me. It is so damn magical. I don't know what the word is. I'm gonna just say magical. I love this record. It's a perfect record, and I know it's not a perfect record, but it's a perfect record. Everything about it, the awkwardness, the off-kilterness of it, the coming and goings, Ozzy's on his way out, the new age. Somebody posted in there about the Shredders were coming on. It was Black Sabbath then and there, caught in time. That moment. It was nothing like Black Sabbath debut record. It was nothing like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. It was nothing like most of what the records we've talked about tonight. It was a lot of just open jams, a lot of air in the songs, a lot of just open vibes, and just here's the solo goes here and things. But for some reason, Ozzy gives heartfelt performances on that. whether he wants to admit it or not. Whenever I read the band say, "Oh, that's our worst album we ever did," I just want to punch them all in the fucking mouth, man. I love this record. A lot of people don't. This is my favorite Black Sabbath Ozzy song record.
That's cool.
And it's Don Airey on keyboards, who's phenomenal on here, and we're on to work with Ozzy.
Yep. Yeah, as you said, it's the band usually is pretty dismissive of this album, and you can understand there's a lot of baggage attached to the album for them, I'm sure. It comes at a very bad time after Ozzy's father died, which other members in the band were close with him. They've seen the writing on the wall. Geezer reportedly, was very much kind of in the headset of this, we're toast. We're just going through the motions at this point. What are we even doing? They recorded, I think, in Toronto for this one, if I remember right. And
I think so. They did a lot of writing somewhere in some theater. They just set up in like a big movie theater, I think it was.
They were staying they were staying like in a smaller hotel, nothing very fancy. It's Toronto, it's winter. They had rented out like a big movie theater that had like a stage so that they could, they basically, and they were putting the album together just day by day. They would go in, like you said, they would jam all day in this big empty theater, go into the studio at night and try to record whatever they'd played all day, which was completely different from what they had done, on other albums. They had never really written that way.
Just to interrupt you for a second there, and if you listen closely on the record, you can hear some edits. You can hear some tape edits as if they used a jam here and a jam there, and they weren't playing it live as a song. It maybe said, "Oh, I like this part of this, I like this part of this," and they matched them up. You can definitely hear that on a couple parts of the record. If you really listen, you'll hear things that just don't, as a drummer, just don't fly exactly in that exact precision, but enough to make it work on the record. So like you're saying, just coming up with things and hoping it'll work. I think sometimes, that jam from that piece, which probably was unnamed, would go good here. So let's jam that and throw it in. And I hear that a couple times on the record.
Yeah, they're just they're literally just they're building the pieces and fitting them together just however best they can. That's it was winter. He describes a lot like we all have our own room, but there's nothing fancy going on. He describes like they'd have to trudge through the snow down. It's basically like there's one bar in town and a grocery store on the corner, and we're all going down like just buying our own groceries and dragging them back to our individual little apartment hotel rooms. The big posh LA party pads are years in the past at this point. Everything about the album sounds like
staying there.
It all sounds like they're very. It was probably kind of a depressing time and a depressing experience for them, and so I understand the baggage with the album. For me, I'm at the other end of the spectrum. This is probably my least favorite of the Ozzy Sabbath albums. There's just not much that clicks here. It's not that a lot of things are terrible. It's just there's not anything that's great about it. For one song you referenced there, King, like Johnny Blade. It's not bad, but it reminds me so much of Thin Lizzy's songs, and Thin Lizzy does it so much better by this point. That if I want to hear a song like that, I'm going to pull out Johnny the Fox or one of those Phil Lynott albums from that era. And they're so much better at that style than what Sabbath is trying to do. The delivery is not as strong. It's like they're trying something a little different, and it's not working this time. Junior's Eyes is it's a very cool, very heartfelt song. Of course, it makes sense with them writing it about Ozzy's father's passing. The one I'll agree with,
which is weird. Just to interrupt you again, which is weird because Dave Walker, he went on and did that audio of Junior Size on that TV show, which unfortunately the videos never surfaced, but the audio has. And that music was actually written before Ozzy changed it to the stuff about his father, and it was still had that same, I would say that melancholic melody to it. But Ozzy, like I said earlier, his voice, his performance on it is so damn good. It's odd, but it's so good.
Yep. Yeah, it was the one piece of music they had worked on with Dave that Ozzy did end up singing on, whether he was aware of it or not. That they reworked it for that.
Right.
There's one gem on the album for me, one absolute gem, and you pointed it out. Air Dance is just amazing. That's one of those songs I can just put on repeat, and it immediately catches you with that guitar hook. The vocal performance is really strong. It has a really cool little story. It tugs at the heartstrings just right. I like the little piano flourishes in it. Air Dance the album's worth it for air dance. Looking back over
That tune's a little that song's a little ELO-ish to me. You hear ELO in there yourself?
Yeah, it does not feel like a Black Sabbath song by this point. And it probably is. This is probably Tony by this point, again, starting to try out some things. He knows his solo albums in the future. He's got to know it by this point. And he's writing for himself maybe at this point more so than he's writing for Sabbath. But yeah, among the rest of the tracks, Breakout does absolutely nothing for me. Swinging the Chain is just, again, they're trying something different. It doesn't work for me. So yeah, the word I would use for this album, I think Marty used it for Technical Ecstasy. I would use the word here. It's a confused album.
I get you, and like I said, I've been on this side of the spectrum, and many people the other side of it. I mean, I totally respect your opinion, and I get your opinion. That's what the weirdest thing about it is. I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but for me, I don't know. It's just for me, it's a special record. I don't know if you were there, Marty, when I was telling him. I said for some reason this album takes me to some weird place that almost reminds me of like Phantasm. I don't know why. It has like the soundtrack to Phantasm. I hear this melancholic kind of like your whole life in front of you, things you've done, things you may do. Your next generation, the generation before you. I just get this whole emotional vibe that comes with it. I don't know if it's just timing or what. I mean, this record this is one of the first ones I got too, back in the $4 Music Land thing when I bought the first album. Back then I played it and I liked it and all, but as I got older and you really break these records down like we're doing now, I mean, this is the fucking one for me. It's just, if I could only have one, it would be this one.
No, I think that's really cool that it's your favorite. Yeah, I don't agree, but no, I think that's really awesome that you connect with it so much. That's really neat. But Marty, what do you think of this one?
This isn't my favorite Sabbath album, but since I'm Technical Ecstasy was the last Ozzy album I bought. Never Say Die I bought before Technical Ecstasy because I heard it wasn't that good, but I bought it and I really clicked with this album. It's a fun record. You could tell this album has my absolute favorite Ozzy song on it, and it's Hard Road. The verse and the chorus of that song, there's like a melancholic push and a groove to it. Is just, I don't know. It's like every time I hear that song, I back it up and listen to it 4 times before I let it go. Before I let the rest of the album go. There's just and that one song sold me on this entire album, where like Never Say Die, the title track. Where Technical Ecstasy failed, like it sounded like knuckle dragging shitty rock music. Never Say Die is a commercial rock song, and it works. They sold it. There's an energy to it. There's a punch to it. Ozzy sounds invigorated on it. It's just a great way to start this album off. It is a weird,
and it's a hit song. Don't forget, it's a hit song.
It is the hit song. It
was on Top of the Pops. They were on twice doing that song.
Yep.
It was the first single that really had hit for them since Paranoid, which again was.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but you've seen the one Top of the Pops that's on the Black Sabbath collection Years, the Ozzy Years one. But if you look on YouTube, there's actually a second appearance of them on their Top of the Pops doing that, and Tony Iommi's playing a Les Paul in the video, which I've never seen him do.
That's the one, King, with Bill's got his hair braided, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
because he's in the front, and Iommi's on the side, almost. I think he's like looking in a mirror the whole thing.
Yeah, because they took some shit about that, because also on that particular episode of Top of the Pops was Bob Marley, and a lot of people thought Bill was sort of being a jackass, making fun of Bob with the hair, but apparently Bill had just been wearing his hair that way for a while, and
Bill had for a while.
Being on the show.
I didn't know that, but I can see that.
This album, since it's so new, I mean, I've had this album for a long time, but out of all the Sabbath stuff, I either grab Sabotage or I grab this album. There's just something lighthearted about it. Although I will say the ending the album was Swinging the Chain. There's like this big band element with the horns and the saxophone shit in it. It just seems strange way to end the album, but maybe it's a good way to end the album. It's a weird,
strange for sure.
My least favorite song is actually Johnny Blade. There's like a 50s detective feel to that song. I don't know if it's the keyboard, like the lighthearted, really busy keyboard line in it. There's something about that song that never gelled that great with me. But the rest of the record I really like. I mean, there's just I put it on. It's a lighthearted. It doesn't have the density of Master Reality. It doesn't have the the super weird experimentation. I mean, I love those other albums too, but it's a fun record. It's not my favorite Ozzy album, but I get a lot of joy listening to this album. Like I said, A Hard Road. If you've been on the wall, like on the fence about listening to this, listen to A Hard Road. That is a great, emotive, super weird, melancholic feel and groove to it. I don't know.
In a different kind of way. Exactly. It's the way they present it. It's not in a heavy metal rock way.
Yeah.
It's more just like almost like a church going kind of experience there, with the way they're just all kind of, they're chanting it. It ain't easy, but we're still here, man.
And you could tell that they jammed a lot of these songs out. There's a lot of, there might not be a lot of changes, or there might not be a lot of really precise riffs. It's just, there's like a groove, a feel. There's a feel about this album that you could tell they're a band that's played together a long time. The core, the musicians of this band, I mean, you got the best rhythm section ever. I mean, Bill Ward is a motherfucker on the drums.
Yeah.
Geezer Butler is, the sickest bassist ever. And you put Tony Iommi's color and his flair over the top of that, and the blues elements come in. There's a great jam element to this album. I mean,
I feel that's the most jam record they have besides the debut album. I think that's the second most jam record they did.
Yep.
I'd agree
kind of
with that,
bookending before Ozzy left, bookending them.
Yep. And Ozzy's last thing, he shouldn't feel bad because he did a good job on it. He sounds good. I know his life was a fucking wreck at this point, but it's a great album. It's way better than Technical Ecstasy. Technical Ecstasy sounds like an abortion compared to this album. I mean, it just, Technical Ecstasy was their spirit was broken on that album. I don't know, but
got to disagree there, but that's okay.
you need to listen to the album again, Alan.
You better watch it, Marty, because Johnny Blade's out there and he can be a spider.
Johnny Blade.
Yep.
And Johnny is a spider. And his web is the city. His web is the city at night. Hope it's not your city, Marty. It's going to get you.
Nothing ever interesting happens here, so no, it's not the case.
Yeah.
They skipped the town.
Well, folks, we made it through the Ozzy era, and you know what, King? We got to pencil you in. We got to get you back for the.
We love you all. We love you all. Oh, God bless you. We'll be around for another 10 years and another 10 years.
We love you, King, and we definitely need to get you back. We're going to do it soon, hopefully. If we can get
absolutely, man.
Sooner rather than later would be great. Yeah.
I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on an album you recommended to me, Black Star. I know you think it's a genius album.
7 star.
Black Star. What is it?
7 star.
7 star.
Black Sabbath 7 star.
I've had enough White Claws where I'm not thinking.
That's how much. That's how much he likes it, Alan.
Party foul.
Party foul.
Do not speak ill of 7 stars.
Close enough.
Yeah. We're at the point where even though the album's called Never Say Die, the band did have to tap out, and some big changes were coming. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing the next episode with you, King. Everyone knows that it's really fun to sit and discuss the Ozzy stuff with you all. But I think we're going to get into the stuff that, a lot of folks are a little less familiar with, and there's a lot of interesting stuff to dive into there. Ozzy is exiting the scene. He's going to go do his own thing, which includes this. Had to show this for my little boy. He makes it,
right on.
He makes an appearance there. But Black Sabbath's going to go through some changes as they move into the 80s, and it's going to be a real interesting trip to see what both of you think of those and compare notes. But we are going to save that for another night, for sure. But it's been great having you on, man. It's really good to see you again.
Absolutely, man.
My Sabbath album is coming. It's coming. My all-time favorite Sabbath album.
Mine too.
Yep.
Mine too.
Boy, that's putting me on the spot.
Which one is it, Alan? Guess.
I'm thinking for myself. My favorite, Master of Reality, is very hard to top, but there is one coming that might do it. It might depend on what day of the week you ask me, but
if your answer isn't Mob Rules, you're wrong.
Hey Marty, when you listen to Fools,
Mob Rules. And
Johnny's a spider. He's out there, Marty. It's Friday Night Johnny.
Hey King, when we log off, stay on. We're going to talk for a second. But everybody,
sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And anybody, I couldn't see. I just want to let everybody know that was watching or anything else. I could never see the comments. I saw a couple you posted down here at the bottom. I don't know why my tablet's the way it is, but it is. I'd have gladly answered anything or anything along the way. If any of that stuff was there.
There
I
was
apologize.
a very active chat tonight, and next week next time we get King on, we're gonna get him on a computer so he can.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the PC next time so I can see everything, and I'll gladly type with any and everybody, man. Everybody's welcome in in this thing. This was fantastic, man. This is the way it should be. This is talking music. This is what the fucking world needs more of. People want to fucking say this sucks and that's great and stuff, but nobody wants to actually discuss the music that they've actually listened to. Yeah. Everything in this world moves so fast now that nobody can fucking, it's just like, yeah, okay, Iron Maiden sucks. That new album's terrible. Let's move on to the next thing. All right, now Judas Priest is out. KK Downing exists in that. Every day it's something else, man. I just love to talk about music, man. And this is
we love
obviously
having you,
us
King.
three. This is our heartbeat, all three of our heartbeat. This is one of our biggest bands and a lot of people's favorite bands of ever. So this has been phenomenal, and cheers to everybody, man. Thank you.
Well, King, we love you, and thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We really appreciate it, and it's an honor to have you with us. Again, people, if you have not heard Deceased or October 31st, get on that shit. Go to Spotify, go wherever you need to go, YouTube, it doesn't matter. It's great, timeless music. Check it out for sure.
And look for that new album on October 31st. It's got a killer track list on it.
Oh my God, it's a
Crash Times at Ridgemont High on Hillside Bangers.
It is
crashing tunes for your brain.
It's a snapshot.
And everybody wish Marty an easy night with old Johnny out there, because he's a spider.
All right, everybody.
And his web is Marty's face at night.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Cheers.
We'll
Thank you all. God bless you. Oh.
And broad.